Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Linda Armstrong here. Today is Friday, September the 7th, 2018, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, your second daily dose of happy for the day. The last one, actually, for the 5-day work week. We do get one more on the weekend on Sunday night, but this kind of like is the last one before we take a little break. Saturday, I actually get Saturday off, Linda. Can you believe that? It's hard to believe, I know, in the schedule, but... But no, it's been a good day and a good week. Today was actually a day where I was doing some collecting for Louise's gardening business. And just before the podcast today, I went out and picked up a check from a customer. And there's something nice about picking up the money after all the work's been done and the customer's happy and so forth. It's, you know, there's a saying in law of attraction circles and indeed in spiritual circles throughout that there's a relationship between energy and money. And that money is, in a sense, an exchange of energy. And energy is an exchange of money. It works both ways. And you feel it when you pick up money after your crew has done a good job for the customer and they're happy. There's a definite energy feel to it. So I got a direct, tangible association today between energy and money. I thought I just mentioned that.
Yeah. Well, there is a definite component to with energy and money because it's energy that's going to keep it away from you or draw it to you.
Either way, that's right. It does work either way, doesn't it? And so often when we're exploring law of attraction and how that whole thing works, money is one of the very first things people are often thinking about when they say, geez, can I attract money into my life? Can I?
Right.
You know, they think about the relationships, they think about the health, they think about the careers, they think about the travel, the house, all that kind of stuff. But money is usually near the top of that list. It's funny how that works.
Yeah.
So anyway, how are you doing? And we haven't talked in a week, but how's it going?
I'm doing good. I hate to say that you're cutting out a little bit for me. I hope it's only just for me, and I will try to fill in the blanks.
Oh, that's not so good.
As we talk.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not sure what to do at this point with that. All my meters tell me everything's smooth at this end, but if you're not hearing, geez, I don't know.
No, you know what? Let's just keep talking. I didn't plug my Ethernet cable in, so I'm going to see if that might make a difference.
Sometimes a hardwired connection does help. That could be it.
Yeah.
So, let's see what that does.
Yes, so take it away. I'll just walk a few feet away.
Okay, well, I'll just get the topic started then, because this actually came out of a conversation that I had earlier this week, as well as the experience that I had just in the last hour or so. I was having a conversation with someone, and I don't really want to get into the specifics of the conversation, but she made a really fascinating point, and it had to do with how a business prices what it does, the services that it offers or the products that it offers and so forth. And she was saying that it is possible to underprice yourself in a way that basically says you are diluting the value of the energy that you're exchanging with somebody. And I thought, well, that's an interesting perspective to have, because I never really thought about energy being diluted. Energy is, energy. So, I wasn't quite sure what to do with it. Now, I also didn't quite agree with her on the particular point that she was making, because we were talking about one particular thing in context. But it did make me wonder about it. Is it possible to dilute energy? And if you're doing that in the sense of when you're exchanging money for something, are you diluting the value in the exchange of the money?
Yeah, I would say yes. I would agree with that.
Why is that? Tell me more.
Well, because say for people who put out a product, sometimes you have this fear-based energy that people aren't going to want to buy it if you price it too high, and so you start to undercut your own. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you may start to undercut your own value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
I can see that.
Then that energy that you're putting out is that you're not worth what you can't get what you're worth. So you have no value. So when you take your value away by compromising yourself, that energy is a diluted energy, and it's not a helpful energy, because you're not going to draw to your clients who are going to value you, because you right there don't value yourself by undercutting yourself. Yeah,
there's a lot of truth to that, because ultimately, if you are pricing less than what your service is worth or what your product is worth, you're basically saying it isn't even worth what I think it is. It's worth less than what I think it is. It's right. Really not worth much at all. And I think there's truth to that. That's very true. It's also a little bit of a slippery field too, because the thing about prices is it's not like there's a built-in price structure for everything. You know, milk should always be this price, or eggs should always be this price, or, you know, seeing a therapist should be this price, or, you know, going out on the town should be this price. It's not the way that prices work. Prices are fluid, and value is very much in the eye of the beholder. So it's a little bit of a slippery topic in that sense. But nevertheless, it is possible to undervalue yourself. And certainly when we undervalue ourselves, we're undermining ourselves. And we're not, like you say, we don't feel good about, not just about the money, but also about what we're doing and how we're perceived, and you know, what role we're playing in our society, and you know, all that stuff. It all ties in.
Right, because you just cut your own confidence. So now you're not confident in the value that you give. And so how can you ever get that? Because energy is energy. So if people feel that and they see this one, like, yeah, they may not even understand why they're not going to choose your product, because the energy is coming through that it doesn't hold, it's not worth, it doesn't have value.
Yeah, and that is easy to have happen. Joel once told me an interesting story about how, now he is a life coach, and previously had actually worked as a strict therapist in Virginia, in the Richmond, Virginia area. And he was talking with somebody who lives in New York City, who was looking for his help, had heard good things about him. And so he quoted to that person his normal pricing in Virginia. And the person said to him, I understand that's what you normally get in Virginia. My recommendation is, if you're going to do more business in New York, raise your price significantly, because otherwise people won't think that you don't value yourself well enough.
Absolutely.
So the pricing was appropriate in one area of the country, but not appropriate in another, which is really interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's a little tricky, because especially when you do, like, you know, work like I do, your market's worldwide, actually.
Well, true. Yeah.
So you gotta kind of, you know, see what you just got to find the value for what, and people either buy it or they don't.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if it's worth if you really feel you're worth what you charge, then it doesn't really matter where you're promoting to, but you're going to pull in people who believe in your value.
And of course, what also adds confusion, if you will, or perhaps just adds more ingredients to the mix, is that we don't always have just the money involved in our thinking. I mean, we get a lot value from a lot of different aspects of life. So, for instance, like right now, you and I are doing a podcast where, on the surface of it, we're not getting paid any money at all for it. Now, is that the way we're going to stay with it? No. I mean, in the long run, we're definitely hopeful of getting to the point where we're selling advertising or services or products or whatever, but we're hoping to build a revenue stream off of it. And I personally believe it's going to happen as we continue to grow our listener base. It's just going to naturally develop, really, more than anything else. But nevertheless, right now, we're doing it, quote, for free, unquote. Now, does that mean we're really doing it for free? No, we're doing it in anticipation of future value. But right now, the price is zero, you know? So,
But let's not forget, it has value, because it fills its intention of uplifting people into stepping into their power to create, you know.
Exactly. And that's where I was going with it, because it's not just about money. There are lots of different ways to get value back and to give value. And value exchange can happen far beyond money. In fact, one of my earliest interviews was with a gentleman named Bob Berg, who is actually a very successful author of personal development and success books. I don't remember how many books he's written, but each one has sold over 250,000 copies, so he does pretty well. One of the points that he makes is that when you're selling something, no matter what it is that you're selling, you always want to try to give a little bit more value than what you're expecting back, which is an interesting viewpoint, because what he's really trying to say is you want to make sure that your customer is really, really happy. You don't want to undercut yourself, but you want to go above and beyond so that you have a loyal customer. Now, so what do you think? How does that tie into what we're talking about with energy?
Well, and the way I look at it is that, especially when it comes to money, because when we look at, say you have a service and you're looking at, or say in my business, if I look at my service at its value per hour,
mm-hmm.
and then I want to count up all the hours I could work this week to make this much money, and if I have this many more clients, you start looking at the money side of it.
Mm-hmm.
But that actually makes it start to feel maybe heavy in some ways.
It can.
Whereas if you were to look at the service that you're giving, not the dollars that you're asking for, but the service, the value that people receive,
right?
The healing that they get, or from the show, the upliftment that they get, that's the true currency.
Mm-hmm.
So when you focus your attention on what the people are receiving from you, well, it's a whole different energy. And in that lighter, it feels very sparkly energy to me.
Sparkly, okay.
Yeah, because that's what's coming to me. It just feels, exciting, light, lively, sparkly. That then the money will flow, because the attention is not, it's focusing on a positive aspect of what you're doing, and not getting hung up on the money coming back, because there's so many beliefs around money and so much crap associated to it that is energetically not good.
Yeah.
And which makes me, I happen to have Abraham's Money and the Law of Attraction cards in my hand.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When you said that, I went and I pulled the deck.
Cool.
That you wanted to work on that. And so the first one I see, and this is a belief. The first card I'm pulling here, it's actually the number 7 card. It says, money is not the root of evil or of happiness. So want me to read you what they say?
Yeah. I agree with it on the surface, but let's hear it.
Okay. So what they say here is, this important subject of money and financial success is not the root of all evil, as many have quoted, nor is it the path to happiness. So when you're able to successfully control something like that subject of money that affects most of you all day, every day, you will have accomplished something rather significant. For not only is it certain that your financial success must improve, but the evidence of that success will then prepare you for deliberate improvement in every aspect of your life experience.
Yeah, that's
so.
right.
I mean, there are so many. In fact, I came across a very strong belief that people hold yesterday, because I had to go to a wake actually, for a very wealthy woman who passed, very wealthy family, right? Mm-hmm. But I can't tell you how many people I bumped into there that said, you see, money doesn't buy you happiness.
Oh, interesting.
Because this family happened to be a very wealthy family, but they've had a lot of heartache in their life. So, they probably believe it too.
Sure.
Because they have all the money in the world, but they don't have all the happiness. So I remember when I was younger, and in fact, it was this particular family where I kind of learned this from. I learned it, of course, from my mom. You see, money doesn't buy you happy. Look at all the trouble they have in their life. So if you hold that belief, that money doesn't buy you happiness, and that, money brings you misery, well, guess what?
You right.
will not allow yourself to have money.
Exactly. You just convinced yourself of it, and you've convinced the universe of it.
Yeah. And even it's subconscious. Most people aren't even aware of that they've heard this over and over and over again in their life, that they hold it. But then you try so hard to get ahead. But your soul is like, no, remember, you decided money is evil, and you won't be happy, and you want to be happy in your life, so we cannot have money. That's how the subconscious mind works.
Now, it's an interesting sideline to that, side note rather. There are some people who will agree with the first part of what was said on that card, that money is not the root of all evil, but they'll say that the love of money is the root of all evil. And personally, I think that's a distinction that really misses the point, but I'm curious, what do you think of that one?
I think it's the same thing.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think basically saying that the love of money is the root of all evil is. It's kind of like you create this picture of a Scrooge, right? And the only thing that Scrooge does all day long is pick up his piles of money and go, "I love you so much," and everybody else, "Get out of here! I don't want you anywhere." I mean, that's basically what you're painting with the idea of the love of money.
But you know what? Energetically, the love of money is what's going to bring you more money.
Well, that's true. Yeah, in many ways, it's true. Yeah,
the energy of love, and I've seen some people out there coaching. Like, I forget this one woman. I don't even know what she calls herself or anything, but her whole thing was this having a romantic love affair with money.
A romantic love affair. Oh,
well, that kind of thing. Like, that's how she pitched it. But really, truly, she was just talking about really loving money. Mm-hmm. Like telling it you love it. I mean, like, really just every way you can imagine. I didn't take her course. I don't know what she does with it, to tell you the truth. Mm-hmm. But looking back on it with all that I know now, I'm like, absolutely. How can it come to you if you don't love it?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's just another cop-out limiting belief that people have, people, media, everybody's been put on you.
I don't know if people realize it, but whenever we say that something is evil, what we're really saying is, I resist it.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. It's not like there is an objective thing called evil necessarily. I mean, it's not like that's... Well, there are some people who believe there are like devils among us and so forth, but personally, I don't like to torture my subconscious mind that way. I don't think it's really valuable to do so. But nevertheless, even if you just understand it sort of metaphorically, what they're really talking about is there are things that I resist. There are experiences that I resist. There are ideas that I resist. So if we understand evil as being something I resist, then if we rephrase it, the love of money is the root of resistance, then the statement falls apart really fast. Because you say, well, wait a minute, that doesn't even begin to work. That's just like pure contradiction going on there. I love it when I turn phrases around and replace words because, boy, it just makes things clearer. And that's the way I feel like about that particular phrase. The love of money is the root of all evil. When you rephrase it using direct substitution words, all of a sudden you realize just how nonsensical the phrase is.
Yeah. Well, look, here's another one. Another one of the Abraham cards. Money isn't everything, but, right? Money isn't everything. No, it's not everything, but feel the energy around that. Money isn't everything, but it's very, very negative, very low. Mm-hmm. So what they write on this one is, you're right when you think money isn't everything. You certainly do not need money to have joy in your experience, but in your society, there's so much of what you live that is tied to money in some way. Most of you associate money with freedom. And since freedom is the basic tenet of your being, then coming into alignment with money will help you establish a balanced footing that will be of value to you in all other aspects of your experience.
Yeah, that's good. I'm reminded of something because it just dawned on me the connection here. You're reading from these Money and the Law of Attraction cards that Abraham Hicks put out, and there was an episode of not an episode but a workshop where Abraham was speaking on YouTube, and they were using the cards. I think they were actually taking the moment to announce that the cards had been created and were now available for sale. But they were also tying it into the discussion with whoever was in the hot seat or something along that line. Anyway, they were treating it as a situation where they were pretending Abraham was somebody who has a bad relationship with money. And so Esther was picking up the cards and voicing Abraham. She was, she'd pick up a card and she'd read, what was the card that you just read? What was the top of it?
This was money isn't everything but.
So she'd say, yeah, money isn't everything but. Yeah, except when you don't have it. And she'd toss the card aside. And then she'd go on to the next card. Yeah. And she'd play the role as if this is a person who had a bad relationship with money, just dismissing all these concepts that were on the cards. And you do that like 5 or 6 cards, you're rolling in the aisle because it's so funny to watch. But boy, have you seen that one?
Yeah, I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah, but boy, I mean, you see it and it really reinforces for you, first of all the different ways that we sabotage ourselves with money and the phrasings and the ideas that we associate with it. And second of all, it really shows graphically just how much we set ourselves up when we start from feeling bad, when we start from a bad feeling place. Because you're basically shooting yourself in the foot at that point. No matter what comes out of your mouth is always going to be a rejection of the thing that you want.
Well, and now when you start to pay attention, because maybe people don't pay attention to these thoughts, these things that they're playing out all the time. But even like, these days I pay everything online, but when you used to write out checks, right, and mail them.
Right.
A lot of times, and I know I've done it, you have this resentment, to having to send all this money to this one and all this money to that one. Really, that's the wrong energy. It should be gratitude. Oh, thank you. Pay that bill. Thank you for supplying me my electricity. I'm so grateful for it. Thank you for my house that I live in, whatever it is.
Oh, yeah, it's true. I mean, how many times, especially in the past where I did a lot of check writing, and you're right, I don't write checks much anymore. Although, don't put down check writers because most of our customers for the gardening service are check writers. But nevertheless, but I can remember writing a check. Like you said, I'd write a check to the power company. Ugh. All right, write the check. Ugh. And I'd be breathing like that, not realizing that I was undermining myself when I did that.
Right. because really that's the energy you're giving towards the money. So how can you have more of it? You're not, it's not like there's no love there. So really that one comment, I'm glad you brought that up about this love of money. Yeah, you gotta love your money. And you know what? The other thing that takes money to make money. Well, yeah, that's really freaking true. So let's love our money, make more money, love our money, make more money. And what do you do with that money? Whatever you want to. You can help so many people if you're able to conquer it and create it so easily. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. In fact, one of the favorite topics that we humans have where money is concerned is the economy. And when you talk about the economy, what you're really talking about is the exchange not just of money, but of energy, or more precisely, the exchange of goods and services for effort.
Yeah.
And when you look at it that way, well, it means that every time that I'm paying a bill, not only am I smart to be appreciative of whatever the product or service is that I was paying for, but I'm contributing to the health of the economy.
That's right. To people's wallets.
And I'm doing it in ways that I don't even necessarily see. Mm-hmm. I mean, if I pay my bill to company X for whatever company X provided to me, there is some employee who's getting a part of that as part of their paycheck so they can go out and buy groceries to feed their family. And when they're buying their groceries to feed their family, they're actually paying money to a supermarket that's also employing some people who are using that money to go feed their families. Yeah. And the cycle just continues as you keep working your way through it. It's one transaction after another, leading to yet another family being fed.
Well, you know what? I'm going to read another card because it's just perfect for right now.
Okay.
And it's really basis of so much. So this one says, the better my story gets, the better my life gets.
Yes, right.
I love this card. What they explain here is, begin telling the story of your desire and then add to it the details of the positive aspects that you can find that match those desires. And then embellish your positive expectation by speculating with your good feeling. Wouldn't it be nice if? Examples. You can say things like, only good things come to me and I'll figure it out as I go along. Every time you tell your better feeling story, you will feel better and the details of your life will improve. The better it gets, the better it gets. So that's why we want to, every time you have one of those ugly money stories come in your head, or thoughts or resentment or regrets or whatever, you want to flip that story, tell a better feeling story.
It's helpful to know also that when we tell that better feeling story, at least it is for me, maybe this isn't true for others, but when let me phrase it this way. When I tell that better feeling story, it's always helpful for me if I remember that what it is that I'm trying to attract, or what it is that I want to have in my life that maybe isn't here yet, and I could easily get frustrated about, or maybe I'm frustrated because I'm paying out money at a time when I feel like I don't have money, or something along that line. Anytime that I reverse all that and approach it from the positive viewpoint, I'm not just helping myself. I'm also helping a whole bunch of other people that I don't see, hear, or even perhaps know about. And I'll never actually see the transactions that take place, or the exchanges of energy that take place. I mean, I never even see the exchange of energy that takes place when I'm exchanging money with somebody, or rarely anyway, because I rarely even see energy, let alone see it being exchanged. And yet I know it's happening. Well, the same thing happens. It becomes like a ripple in a pond effect. I interact with you and we do a financial exchange of some kind, and then you interact with somebody else and they do a financial exchange, and then they interact with somebody else and they do a financial exchange. The ripples just go on and on and on. Well, the same thing happens when we're either in a good feeling place or a bad feeling place. If we're in a good feeling place and we get ourselves there by focusing on positive aspects, we're not just helping ourselves. The same energetic pattern passes along to other people in our sphere of influence. And then they pass along to other people in their spheres of influence, provided, of course, we're all kind of in a positive space.
I love it, Walt. I never want to hear you say again, what is this thing about energy? Because you got it.
Well, I didn't say that I didn't understand what it was. I just didn't understand what it looked like. I didn't know how to feel it. I didn't know how to experience it in that sense. But I do understand how energy works. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the 100 Monkey story, which I'll probably blow if I try to sell it.
That's all right. No, go ahead.
You know it?
I don't think I do, no.
Well, yeah, we talked about this before too. It's the same thing with the minute mile thing when they broke the record
The
and then it
4 minute
started
mile.
changing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the 100 monkey thing was where they had these monkeys on these little different islands, and
Oh, you told me about this. Yes, I do
yeah,
remember that.
and
Yes.
on the one island, these monkeys figured out a solution to the problem,
Right.
and all the other monkeys after that started doing the same solution
Mm.
because the energy goes out there. So just like you just said, by you holding that energy or that way of being, it does trickle out and ripple out. I mean, it joins the collective consciousness with a good story, right? So that's why you want to put the brakes on those bad stories and flip them to something good, because let's make that be this contagious energy, which, when enough people hook into it, it grows and grows, and things change big time around the whole world just by doing that.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Yeah. It's hard to remember sometimes, but it's also a really good thing to remember. And that's what I like to remind myself of, that it's not just me. When I'm making myself feel a better place, or when I'm, doing something nice for somebody else, or whenever I'm doing anything that's in the positive realm, even if I'm having to stretch myself to do that, it's a ripple effect. And the more I should put up a sign on the wall. There's a ripple effect every time I do something or feel something good. Because we need that reminder. It's not because you don't see it, right? Most of the time, you just don't see it. So how do you know it's there? And yet it is.
Right. Yep. Well, you can tune into. I did a video on that last week about how your body's like an energetic tuning fork. So in your environment, your close environment, it's easier. You can tune into energy around you, right? So.
Yeah, you taught me that very nicely, I must say.
Yeah, so you can feel that. So you're saying it's rippling out. Sometimes you don't see it there, but sometimes you can, and which is good, because when you become more sensitive to energy and you find yourself in a space where there's all this, you can feel either the negativity in the room or the direction that something is going in.
Yeah, everybody's felt that at one time or another, no doubt.
Yeah, so you can remove yourself from that, or you can get sucked into it.
Mm-hmm.
Like when people gossip, I'll just walk away. But it's easy to get sucked into some kind of a gossip thing because people enjoy that. They enjoy talking about crap that other people are doing. Unfortunately, that's the water cooler stories when I used to work in offices and things that, that stuff would spread like wildfire, right?
It's interesting that you would say that too, because I can honestly tell you, I never liked gossip, not because I thought it was wrong or anything. It just bored the heck out of me. Literally, I talk about the water cooler type story. Now, I never actually had a job in a company where there was a water cooler that people stood around. So I never actually got to experience that per se. But I can remember times where, I would work in a company where, there were cubicles all over the place, and you'd visit somebody else in another cubicle, or a couple people would be visiting at the end of the day, that kind of thing. And you're right. That was often the situation where the rumor mill would get going, and all the little tidbit chitty chat stuff would go on. And my first instinct every time there was that kind of stuff going on was, how can I get out of this conversation? Not because I was morally against it, but just because I didn't like it. I wanted to be away from it. It just didn't feel good. Right,
because what you didn't realize was you were totally tuning into that energy, and you weren't a mix to it, and you're like, it's like, I don't want to be here.
Ugh, yeah, please, can we talk about something else?
You know what? So here's another card, because being that we're at the water cooler in
okay.
A lot of times the conversation would be against the boss, right?
Oh yeah, very common.
So here's a card. I will praise success wherever I see it.
Yeah.
So it says, when you find yourself critical of the way anyone has attracted or is using money, you're pushing money away from you. But when you realize that what others do with money has nothing to do with you, and that your primary work is to think and speak and do what feels good to you, then you'll be in alignment not only about the subject of money, but about every important subject in your physical experience.
Now, that can be a bit of a challenge. I mean, trying to find something to feel good about somebody else who has a lot of money who you don't like, and feeling good about their success. That can be hard. I mean, there are a number of people I can think of in the public eye who are very wealthy, who are quite controversial. They get a lot of flack for their controversial stuff. And for a lot of people, thinking about them positively in terms of their success, that would be a stretch.
Well, you're also looking at, say, what the media says, but what about all the stuff the media doesn't say? Maybe that very same person does a lot of good in the world with the money that they created through
True.
You know what I mean?
Very true.
But even so, if that person was able to generate millions and millions of dollars and I haven't been able to do it, well, shoot, more power to them. I'd like to be able to learn how they did it.
Well, that too. Yeah, exactly. I think some of us often think in terms of, well, we should be responsible. We should think about it in terms of, yes, I want to accumulate the money, but I'm going to spend the money wisely. I'm going to be responsible about it. And even that has an energy that's not so good. Because the energy is basically, I will only let money in if it can be spent in a certain way.
Yeah. Well, it's limiting energy.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's common. That happens all the time, right?
And
probably not even in ways, it's not even part of conversations. It's more like the attitudes behind conversations, when people knowingly, talk about such and such and so, they don't actually say, well, it should have been spent in this way and not in that way, but it's what they meant.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, money is a tricky subject because there's so many ways that we're really good at tripping ourselves up on it. And I think probably the hardest part about it is noticing that we're the ones tripping ourselves up. I mean, it's not like this was all, it's not like it's in the nature of money to trip us up. Money is just a medium of exchange. That's all it is. It's just,
It's just an energy. So, well, okay, look, here's another card. I am becoming more aware of my feelings about money. So let's see what they say about that, because that's pretty much what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Says many people protest when we explain the power of telling the story of their finances as they want it to be rather than as it is, because they believe that they should be factual about what's happening. But if you continue to look at lackful what is and speak of what is, you will not find the improvement that you desire. If you want to affect substantial change in your life experience, you must think thoughts that feel different as you think them.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe, as soon as you feel yourself feeling resentment towards someone who is wealthy, you want to try and tell another story. Like maybe the story is, well, I don't really know what good they do in this world with their money. Whatever, we can make up stories to make it not, so we don't hold that resentment towards them for having it. Because by resenting them for having it, it's transmitting that same resentful energy to money. Mm-hmm. And so we're not going to be able to draw it in if we resent it. We must love it. We must love it.
Now we may find that it's too much of a leap. It's too much of a stretch to do it all in one stretch. I mean, maybe it at this point in time where I am right now, maybe it's too far for me to say that billionaire over there is actually a good person because of they were able to earn the money in the first place, and there are other ways that they're spending the money that are good. Maybe that's too far for me because I just don't like person X.
But it gets back to it's their story and it's not yours,
Oh, it does, no doubt about it. But it's like any other, anytime that when you're not in an ideal feeling place, if you're in a bad enough feeling place, you can't even see that really high feeling place. So you have to go for something in between. You have to aim for a stepping stone, so to speak. That's what Abraham talks about when they say, don't try to go from depression right up all the way up the scale to happiness. You probably won't even be able to see it, let alone get there. Go a little bit higher on the scale to maybe frustration, then go for hope, and work your way up incrementally. Don't try to do it all in one leap. Well, you can do the same thing with money, I think. It's kind of what we were doing. Cindy and I have been doing for the last few episodes. We've been talking about famous billionaires who we don't think about as billionaires, who do things that most of us like. So even if we can't reach for appreciating the person we don't like who's a billionaire, we can at least go for the ones that we like and get ourselves into a better feeling place that way. And some of the ones we came up with were like J.K. Rowling, who wrote one of the best set of children's books in world history. Ralph Lauren, believe it or not, is a multi-billionaire. I mean, a guy who has given us a fashion line, so to speak, that is all over the place. I mean, men in particular have worn Ralph Lauren for not for generations. Well, yeah, for generations, actually, but for decades, for certain. And yet, do we think of Ralph Lauren as a multi-billionaire? No, we don't, but he is. Has he contributed to the world in a great way? Yeah, he has. Another person, Oprah Winfrey. I mean, how many Oprah Winfrey fans are there out there who don't realize and don't think about the fact, my God, she is wealthy. I mean, she's got a ton of money, but they don't think about it that way. They just think about how wonderful she is on her TV programs and with the O Network and her magazine and so forth, and all the different ways that she's helped people and so forth. Well, focus on them. All these people, there are so many people out there who are very wealthy, who have done so many great things in the world. That's a nice way to get there, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
You know?
I don't know. I just feel like I just don't knock people with money, because I know that that's only going to reflect on me.
Yeah. Yeah. And what we're really trying to do is we're trying to release the resistances that we have about money, because we all have them. I mean, it's not like we don't. So we're trying to find ways to release them. And like you said, one of the best ways to do that is just appreciate people who have money as much as we possibly can, because that's a good thing. That helps us feel better. That helps us do the releasing.
So here, I'll read another card.
Okay.
I do not need to have money to attract money.
Ah.
So it says you do not need to have money to attract money, but you cannot feel poor and attract money.
Mm-hmm.
The key is you have to find ways of improving the way you feel from right where you stand before things can begin to change. So this is kind of like what you're talking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
By softening your attention to the things that are going wrong and begin to tell stories that lean more in the direction of what you want instead of in the direction of what is currently happening, your vibration will shift, your point of attraction will shift, and you will get different results. Yeah.
I mentioned Cindy Chavez earlier because she's the one that I've been doing the series about multi-millionaires, multi-billionaires, and the things they've done that have been so great in the world. Cindy had an interesting experience, a little experiment that she did last spring. For about a 10-day period, she decided that every day for 10 days, she was going to repeat one affirmation to herself 1,000 times every day. And that affirmation was, I feel rich.
Yeah.
And she did it, too. And she used like the equivalent of rosary beads. I guess they were like Mardi Gras beads because she lives in Louisiana. And, and she did it. She was able to do 1,000 a day for 10 days. And it became a thing, of course, in her house. And, her husband's, what are you doing? She explained to him what I'm doing and all that kind of stuff. During that 10-day period, a few interesting things happened. One of the interesting things that happened is they have a favorite restaurant they love to go to. And within a couple days of starting that process, she received in the mail from that restaurant a promotion offering them $50 off their next meal at the restaurant. Like, cool. So that was really good. And then a couple days later, I guess their car broke down and they had to have it repaired at the local car dealership. And while it was being repaired, the dealership gave them a loaner car. Well, the loaner car that they gave them was a model that they've always wanted to have. So they got to drive this really, really nice car, for the next few days while the repair was being done. Funny thing about it was she was still doing the affirmations during this period, and they were really getting into it so much that they ended up having that car, I think, for a total of like 2 or 3 weeks. Because the dealership kept calling and saying, we need to do a little bit more. We need to keep the car a little bit longer. Why don't you just drive the loaner for a while? So it just stuck with them for a while. They got to experience experiencing what it's like to have this very wealthy person's car for like a 2 or 3 week period, just because she was saying to herself every day, I feel rich, I feel rich, I feel rich, I feel rich.
Totally.
And by the way, she chose I feel rich rather than I am rich because she considered it to be more believable.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Do you agree with that? Yeah.
Sure. It's whatever you feel is right for you.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So what else you got for cards there? I mean, this is a good card deck. I hadn't thought about going through that card deck, but what do you got? What else you got for a message?
So here, let's do this one. It comes not by magic, but by universal law. Start telling a better feeling story about the things that are important to you. Do not write your story like a factual documentary, weighing all the pros and cons of your experience, but instead tell the uplifting, fanciful, magical story of the wonder of your own life and watch what happens. So this kind of even talks right to what Cindy did. It will feel like magic as your life begins to transform right before your eyes, but it is not by magic. It is by the power of the laws of the universe and your deliberate alignment with those laws.
Mm-hmm. You're reminding me of something because there was a time early on in my exposure to law of attraction and Abraham teachings and so forth where I knew that I was supposed to start telling the better feeling story, but I was so habitually locked into the what is story that when I would sit down and try to write the better feeling story, I'd have a mind block. My mind wouldn't let me do it because my mind kept telling me, no, you got to tell the what is story. And I would actually get stuck there. Now, I eventually did manage to get unstuck, but I'm curious, what's your take on that? How would you get, if you were dealing with a client, let's say, who was stuck in that way, they couldn't find a way to tell a better feeling story. They felt like it always had to be the what is story. How would you help that person?
Well, what works for me when I work with people is I have them get into their child mind. Well, or the magic 8 ball, or let's just pretend. If you can get someone to start a story, they can all of a sudden blow with it. They just don't think they can start the story.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And sometimes I'll even just start it for them. Okay, so I'm going to start it for you. Sometimes I'll have them have their eyes closed, and it's kind of like a manifesting process. And I start them on this journey of whatever this is, this new story, and I have them take it over. And because I got it rolling for them, then they could step into it. Because sometimes it's just hard for people to just shift. It's really an easy thing to do, but not always, not for everybody, until they do it once. And then it's like, oh, okay. So if I'm working, this happens all the time. Then I'll work with them another time and I'll be, well, what do you want? Sometimes they don't know what they would prefer. They don't even take the time to think of it. So I'll ask, well, how would you like this to be? What would be an ideal day for you living? I'd have to prompt them with a few different questions. So then they get their juices flowing, and then they can start getting into this new story.
Yeah.
So it's not that hard to take someone out of them thinking that they can't create a new story. Because they absolutely can, because we're creative people.
Oh, we are, yeah. And that's cool. I like your technique of starting the story for them to make it easier for them to get going. But I also like, and it actually resonates perfectly with what I did, I liked it when you referred to taking them back to, I forget how you said, to like a childlike place.
I like wonder, yep.
Yeah, because what I ended up doing was remembering that even if I'm having trouble right now changing the what is story to the fanciful what I would like it to be story, I didn't have that problem as a kid. So just pretend, because that's what I did as a kid. I would pretend, right? So just pretend what the story is and start the story that way. I'm not telling a real story. I'm telling a pretend story. And when I justify it to myself that way, then I was finally able to break through. I was able to break the ice, so to speak, and start telling the new story.
Yeah.
So I was interested that you said that, because that was my breakthrough method.
Yeah. There's always a way, and so sometimes you need to go to, that's why people hire coaches, right? Because
that's right.
They don't know how to do it for themselves, but then they can learn.
And that's what it's all about, trying to learn whatever it is and in whatever way we need to in order to get ourselves off that stuck place, off that what is place, off that place of, I don't know how to get there. I can't get it. I don't like it. I don't want it. This it's too scary. It's too uncomfortable. Got to get off that place, because that place is death in life. It doesn't actually work.
Here's a card that maybe plays into what you said, the way you've done it before.
Okay.
This card says, the story I tell is the basis of my life. So it says, there's no right or wrong way to tell your improved story. It can be about your past, your present, or your future experiences. The only criterion that is important is that you be conscious of your intent to tell a better feeling, improved version of your story. Telling many good feeling short stories throughout your day will change your point of attraction. Just remember that the story you tell is the basis of your life. So tell it the way you want it to be.
Yeah. And this, using the starting point of, I'm a person who knows how to pretend like a little kid, because I could pretend as a little kid. Yeah. When I'm starting from that pretend position, then doing exactly what you just said, that becomes very doable. Yeah. It becomes very possible to start, spinning that yarn in that way that makes it feel better. Because you're right, feeling better, that's the key. If it feels better, it is better. It's better for you, and it's better for everyone around you, and it means that you're passing along through the ripples of the energy field. You're passing it along to other people and so forth. Everybody's benefiting from it, but it all starts with you feeling good about it.
Well, I've had people say to me, but I don't have a good imagination. Like, everybody has a good imagination. It's like having a weak muscle. You just have to work it a little bit, get it back in tune because you came here with a very strong imagination muscle.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I'll take people back to, I guess working with kids, I get kids get me, like they can hear the things. I did a meditation group and these kids were so wise, but I was like, wow, I wish I was like you when I was a kid. I mean, so the thing is they can go there. And if you don't believe that you've ever done it, just look at some little kids and see the stories they tell and the things that they dream up. And, you'll remember that you used to do the same thing or just pretend. Mm-hmm. Be a kid who can pretend to be something.
Exactly.
Right? We used to pretend to be a doctor. We used to pretend to be a teacher, a nurse, whatever it is. We used to, the mom, the dad. So pretend to be, somebody who has these great ideas and whatever the story is, make a new story and pretend it.
Right, because that part actually hasn't disappeared. Just you want to have a starter. You talked about how you would start a story for somebody. Well, the starter that we are all familiar with is, okay, pick a profession. Just pick any profession. Doesn't matter what it is. Now pretend that you're that profession. That's starting a story.
Yeah, totally.
And it's starting it easily, too, because now we're not tying it necessarily to us directly. Isn't that funny? It's so much easier to tell the story when it's not about us.
Yeah. So then you make your little alter ego guy.
Right.
Tell a story. Tell a new story for that one because that one needs a new story,
Yeah, it does. No doubt about it. Yeah.
Here's a card. Achieving success is my natural birthright. So it says you are meant to succeed and failure should feel bad to you. Life is supposed to go well for you. And when it does not, there is something wrong. But what is wrong is not something that is outside of you over which you have no control. What is wrong is within you, and you do have control. And taking control is not difficult to do once you understand the basis of who you are and the basics of law of attraction and the value of your personal emotional guidance system. So you can always tell that better feeling story, right? If you have to go into the child mind to do it, I guess I kept my child mind. I can make up stories all day long.
Well, good. I mean, I'm glad that you were able to keep it all these years.
Well, I guess, and maybe that's why I build that into what I do.
Sure.
So
yeah,
so that I can help other people to do it because it makes a difference.
It does.
You do feel better. I when I first was getting into a lot of this stuff, I got into it through crystals at first, and I would go to in Chinatown, New York City. There was this great crystal shop, and you could take your aura picture, and these Chinese girls would tell you about you by looking at your aura picture. I didn't know anything about auras at the time. And I would be blown away that they could pick up on so much stuff, right? And so I learned how to work with the energy of the crystals in manifesting. And one thing you do is you speak to your crystal. You can give it a program to help. Like I have this one crystal I'm holding right now. And I can give it a program that what its job is to do for me is to, I'll use this example to assist me in getting to my ideal weight or something like that. I give it a job. And so I can connect with this crystal because it's holding the intention for me. So that can help me to get into that feeling place and that energy space of working on these new stories. So I bought my mom this really expensive crystal. And I told her, Mom, this, I want you to use this crystal. I want you to tell this crystal how skinny you are and give it the job to help you to lose weight, like all this kind of stuff, right? I explained the whole thing to her. And she says to me, no, she's a little Italian lady. I cannot do that. I'm like, oh, why? I cannot lie. I cannot lie. I cannot lie. I'm fat. I'm like, Mom, you have to lie. Okay? You have to tell a new story. I need you. Do it for me to tell a new story. She couldn't do it. She loves the necklace. She'll wear the necklace, but she laughs. And when she tells other people, Linda says, I have to tell it I'm skinny, but I can't.
I think that's a case of what Abraham talks about when they say it's just too far. It's too far of a reach. That's where the in-between step is helpful, I think. And I'm not sure what her in-between step would be, but something that isn't quite as far as, well, I got to tell the lie.
It's not even too far of a reach for her. It's more of a religious thing. She's going to go to hell or something if she lies. I don't know.
Well, that makes it too far of a reach. That's a real far reach at that point. That's about as far as it gets.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, did your mom ever tell you stories when you were growing up?
No, she wasn't really a storyteller.
She wasn't?
Maybe that's part of it.
Oh, okay. So she has sort of a thing about needing to learn how to tell a story, period.
Possibly.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it comes down to just if she'd ever actually read, nursery rhymes or children's stories or something like that. Maybe she just needs to read a fictional story, just read it out loud, just to have that experience.
Yeah. Well, she loves to read fictional stories, but it's just
Oh, she does. Oh, well, that's good.
You couldn't make the connection. But anyway, I know we're running out of time. I want to do one more card before you go into your
Absolutely.
closing.
Sure.
So here's a good one, I think, to close with.
Okay.
It says, there is no shortage of time or money. So there is no shortage. And any attention to shortage of something wanted will always produce negative emotion within you because your guidance is letting you know that you have strayed from your broader basic understanding of abundance and well-being. Whether you are focused upon the shortage of money or seeing yourself as having only so many years to live, and so each day that is expended is one day closer to the end of your years, that feeling of decline is contrary to your broader understanding of the eternal nature of your being.
Boy, is that an important thing. Because
Yeah.
I find myself often having those thoughts entering my head about, you only have so many days, or, illness overcomes you at some point, or everybody declines or whatever. And it's this constant battle. Every time I notice it coming in, it's like, nope, no thank you, moving on, next. and
Right.
constantly sorting it out, so to speak. Filtering out that stuff that I don't want because it keeps coming. And it's not like it's just within me, too, because I'm getting messages from society all the time about that kind of thing.
So notice those people out there, and you can find them, that are living to 120 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's stories out there. So if one can do it, all can do it. That's my thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. There was a special on one of the TV networks, I can't remember which one, about famous people who are now in their 80s and 90s and just living like, they were in their 40s or their 50s. They're just, living life and they're unencumbered and life is great. And they're just moving right along. One of the ones that came to my mind is Betty White. Betty White, who has one of the most, ebullient personalities. She is just, Miss Positivity herself. She has had a remarkable career. She actually started when television started. She was like on one of the very, very first television shows that ever existed.
Wow.
And she's been on television ever since. And she's the only one of the Golden Girls who's still around. And she's like going strong. She is just absolutely going strong. And she could be around for another 20, 30, 40 years. Who knows how long?
Yeah, yeah.
There's really no limit to it.
I love seeing her.
Yeah, she's really something. She's a very powerful person.
You know what I want to tell you? I shot a video today. I'm either going to upload it today or Monday.
Oh.
But it was kind of like sort of like a book review of our book, Your Daily Dose of Happy.
Oh, great! Wow.
Yeah. So I put that out there today.
Excellent.
Yeah.
You do a lot of videos, don't you? That's one of your ways of putting energy out into the universe, by doing a lot of videos.
Yeah. Every Monday and Friday, I post a video.
That's great. And you're getting a following out of it too, which is even better. So that means that's like the evidence. Whenever we get a following for something, that's what I noticed with the podcast. At first, I had no listeners at all. When Louise and I did the first episode, a little under 6 years ago, we had 0 listeners. But that wasn't why I was doing the podcast. I was doing it just because I needed to do it, and it felt good, and I liked it, and so forth. But as time goes on, and you get listeners, and now we got pretty serious listeners in terms of the numbers. You begin to realize how that ripple effect works. The one that I was talking about earlier with money, it applies in all different ways. You really feel it when you do a podcast regularly and you get the feedback from people calling in or sending email messages or using the contact form or contacting you on Facebook. In some cases, we've actually got a chance to meet listeners because they lived locally in the area. It's like, wow, these people found us listening to the podcast, and here we are sitting across the table having lunch with them or having a cup of coffee or something. It's a fabulous experience.
Awesome.
And it really reinforces how this energy exchange is not only so important, but how easily it happens in ways that we don't even notice. But just as with money, and energy works the same way, if you put up the resistances, if you say, no, only what is what counts, no, only my resistances count, only the things that I'm afraid of count, you basically block yourself from having that experience of things like putting on a podcast and all of a sudden you've got new listeners. And that's only one example. There are lots of ways we can exchange energy, but we block ourselves from all these wonderful experiences coming back.
Yeah, but the nice thing is once you bring awareness to it, like you're doing right now on this show today, it changes. Once you have awareness for something, then you have it.
And that's the beauty.
And the shift will begin. The transformation will begin. I did an energy alert because there's a lot of transformation going on right now, like another video on
energy alert.
September energy update kind of thing, because we're moving into a nice energy right now, like a release and surrender and allowing our desires actually to kind of fall in. But maybe we'll talk about that next week.
Sounds good. Yeah, because we are kind of running out of time. And I do have to get a couple messages in before we're done. First and foremost, if you are not yet a subscriber to the podcast, please become one. Most likely that's the case because this is one of the first ones you've listened to. Might even be the very first one. And if you've listened this far, it means that you don't think we're crazy. And so that means you're enjoying it. And if you're enjoying it, become a subscriber. It's so easy to do. Just go to the homepage, loatoday.net. All the instructions are right there. If you don't even want to use a web browser, maybe you haven't used a web browser in a long time because all you do is use your smartphone to, connect to Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever. Well, guess what? You can just do it right on your smartphone directly. Like on an iPhone, you go to the podcast software, the podcast app that's built in, open it up and do a search, and it will find LOA Today if you type in LOA Today. Same thing on an Android phone, except you have one more step to do. You have to just go to the Play Store and get a podcast app. Download it. There are a number of them out there. There are free ones. There are pay-for ones, but I like the free ones. Just download one of those, install it, and do a search there for LOA Today. We'll pop right up there, and you just click the subscribe button, and you get it all coming right to your smartphone every time that we do an episode automatically. So that's the first message. Second message, especially for those who are regular listeners, please keep putting posts out there. More and more of you are doing it, and it is paying off in spades. It is paying off handsomely. Linda, we have had a huge surge in listenership since we started putting out that message about 3 to 4 weeks ago, something like that. Right. Just to give you an idea, we smashed a record, a one-day record for number of plays. Our previous record was a little over 900. We flew through that. At one point, we reached a peak of 1,300 in one day, but we settled in at like 1,258 for that day, 24-hour period. I mean, there was a time a year ago where 1,258 was what we got for a month. And now we're getting it in a day. This is like really, really cool. Well, overall, I mean, that was like a peak, so that was really unusual. But overall, we are almost double where we were about 2 months ago in terms of average number of listeners per day.
Oh, beautiful.
It's really, really climbing, and it's happening largely because people are putting stuff out there saying, hey, I was listening to loatoday.net. Even though you don't know that anybody's seeing it, even if you don't get anybody liking it, I tell you, it's working anyway. The energy is getting out there. You are putting out in a way that's coming back. So please keep doing that. And finally, we'd also like to invite you to give us a call sometime. We had that yesterday, Linda. During the show with Joel, we got a phone call. We got a caller from a listener in London, of all places.
Oh, how fun.
It was really great. And we love it when that happens. So again, the instructions on how to do that are on the website at loatoday.net. Just for any reason at all. You don't need help with anything. Just call in and say hello sometime because we'd love to hear from you. And before we go, Linda, you have one of the most interesting and unusual services I've ever heard from a life coach because you really walk that line very nicely between law of attraction and energy, and you have a very strong emphasis on energy. That can be attractive to many people who need personal help. How do they reach out to you?
They can just email me, linda@lovemylife.coach, or visit my website, which is lovemylife.coach. You can also visit me on YouTube and get to know me there as well. And you can just search me for Linda Armstrong and you'll find me. You can put energy healer or coach and I'll pop up.
You certainly do. I did take a look by the way, at your stuff on YouTube. You are really, really a YouTuber. I mean, you put out lots of YouTube videos. I don't know how many you got there, but I mean, your channel is just chock full of stuff. You're constantly putting out content.
Well, I started focusing on it again, and so now, because I started it years ago and just dropped it, and now,
is that what it is?
Now my attention. Well, I didn't do much back then. Really, this has all been in the last couple of months.
Wow, good for you. Well, this has been great. I look forward to talking to you again in another week. But in the meantime, have a great weekend.
All right.
And Thank you. Okay, and we look forward to talking to you then. And we hope that you'll come back next time as well here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.